Hello, I'm Matt and welcome to Badger Workshop. When I'm working on the computer, I like to sit by this window and look out over the workshop, but I'd really like to have a taller desk. I'm not sure I'll always want a desk in my dining room, so I want to make something that I can reuse in the future. So I'm going to make some sawhorses and then a top to put on them. Then in the future, they can just be repurposed in the workshop. I'm going to make it all out of some construction timber, so I can pull my saw out so I can cut the longer lengths. So obviously one sawhorse is going to be pretty useless and I need a pair, so I set up the stop block and get all the components cut out. I'm actually slightly overcutting these and I'm going to come back and trim them to the final size later on. All this wood comes with rounded over edges, which makes it really nice to carry, but I want to square them off. So I get two sides planed and then I thickness it. I would normally now go to the table saw and do the fourth edge, but I thought I'd have a go doing it in the thicknesser this time. And with boards of this size, that worked really well. Now with it all planed, I can cut it to the final size. I do this again to make sure they're actually square to the newly planed surfaces. I seem to spend my life doing this, but I'm swapping out my 5mm grooving blade, as I want to join these two pieces together with a lap joint, so I mark out where the joint needs to go. I set the height of the blade to halfway up the thickness of the wood. Then I can set up a stop on the miter gauge and another on the fence and start nibbling away at this joint. With all the waste removed, I have a little test and it's a nice snug fit, so I get another one cut exactly the same. Then I can mark out on the second piece where the waste needs to be removed and nibble away at that as well. Now I want to make the shape a little more interesting and add a taper to the base, so I'm just going to mark out where I want it to go. Then I can take it over to the bandsaw and get these cut. The top piece needs to go into a little slot, so I use a scrap to mark out where it needs to go and then I can cut it on the bandsaw. I set the fence up to the line and make a cut to the baseline. Then I can get a scrap of wood and clamp it to the fence as a stop. Now I can flip the board over and make the cut from the other side. As I need to make this cut on 4 pieces, having the fence and the stop set up makes it a lot easier. With all the straight cuts made, I can then just remove the waste piece. Before I can start getting it put together, I give all the pieces a sand down. I start by getting the half lap joint put together, so I get some glue spread out in and get the bits put together and then get it all clamped up. When it's had a chance to dry, I can then start work on the top piece. It is going to get pinned in place with a dowel, so I mark out the centre on this. As these are meant to be sawhorses, the top piece will get marked up with lots of saw cuts, so you just knock the pins out and then you can replace the top. So I could have just screwed mine on, as it's going to be a desk, but as I say, in the future it might become a sawhorse. Now I have the base attached and a way to attach the top, but now I need a support that's going to go about 1/3 of the way up. I'm going to attach this with dowels and I'm going to use my Triton joiner for it, but you could use a jig or just screw them in place. I get some glue in the holes and these are some 80mm long dowels I'm using. Now the trouble with making YouTube videos is you're trying to concentrate on 2 things at once, the project and the filming, and sometimes you make mistakes, and sometimes you make really stupid mistakes. And I still can't quite believe how I did this one. So you can all laugh now, but luckily it came apart without too much trouble and I could get it put round the right way. After I got it back on and almost got over my stupidity, I could then get some clamps on that just pulled the joint tight. So the top piece goes into these slots. I could leave it like that, but as I've made an effort to put angles in other places, I'm just going to cut some angles on the ends. I set the miter saw to roughly what my pencil mark was, and then got these cut. These top pieces need a hole to accept the dowels, so I get the drill and just mark out the start of the hole. The holes need to be perfectly straight, so I take them to the drill press and finish doing the holes. These were some 12mm holes because I had some 12mm dowel, so I mark out how long I want the dowel to be, and then I can cut down to length on the bandsaw. The dowels can now go in and tapped into place. No glue because I want these to be removable, and I'm leaving them slightly long as well so they're easy to knock out in the future. I'm not a big fan of too much bare pine, so I'm going to stain these with India ink. And don't worry, there will be some Danish oil later on. So whilst I'm waiting for the finish to dry on the bottom, I can start on the top. This is not going to be very complicated. This is just some 3x2 material, which is incredibly cheap, that I'm going to cut down to the same length. I'm going to glue it up in roughly 10-inch sections because that's the maximum capacity of my planer thicknesser. To help with alignment, I'm going to use the biscuit jointer to cut some slots. This could definitely be glued up without one, but now I've got it, it makes life so much easier. With all the slots cut, I apply some glue, get it spread out, and then I can get the biscuits put into place. Now it can be all slotted together, and it really does keep everything aligned nicely. I get a couple of these sections made, get them clamped up, and leave them to dry. When the glue's set, I can take them over to the planer and get one surface done on that. Then I reconfigure the machine as a thicknesser and get them put through to get the other surface done. This leaves everything nice and flat, but also gets rid of all those rounded off corners, so there's no little grooves going through the board. With the two done, I can then get some more slots cut for biscuits and get the two boards glued together. I left the top slightly too long so I could come back and square up the edges. I marked out where I wanted to trim, got the track saw out and clamped in place, and then went to make the cut, and nothing happened. Did the obvious, have I actually plugged it in and turned it on? Try the old hitting it technique, and nothing. I didn't want to stop and fix it right there, so I just flipped the track around and then used that as a guide with an old-fashioned circular saw. That saw had quite an aggressive rip blade, so quite a lot of sanding to clean it all up, and then I can apply some finish, which, you've guessed it, is going to be some Danish oil. After I've got a couple of coats on the top, I also get some coats onto the base. And that's it all done. Now I can sit at my new desk and look out the window as I work. The trouble is, I don't have a stool for this, so that might have to be the next project. Thanks for watching, Thanks to my Patreons, and please subscribe for more videos.